My name is Rowan Ileana Park, and I'm 30. I fix broken systems for a living. IT consulting, neon lit server rooms, tickets that start with panic and end with logs. I make steady money. I can carry a couch up 2 flights without cursing, and I thought I knew what love required. Honesty, small consistencies, Sunday texts that say, made it home safe. Ethan is 27, all charisma and easy posture, a marketing guy who never met a skylight he couldn't photograph. We'd been together 8 months. We met on a rooftop last summer, string lights, bad playlist, good talk. He made me laugh that first night in a way that felt like possibility rather than performance. My friends liked him. My mother said he had kind eyes. My own guard, usually steel, sat down and loosened its boots. There were drift signals I filed under were all busy. His phone face down during dinner, then up during kisses. Last-minute plan changes with excellent reasons. Mood swings he called work weather. And once, on a Tuesday, he joked, "My ex says I always self-sabotage when things get real." He laughed. I did too, because denial sounds like a punchline if you tell it right. 3 Fridays ago, we planned to meet at a wine bar his circle loved. Cement floors, candles and recycled bottles, a chalkboard menu that mispronounced its own cheeses. I arrived at 8:07 p.m. in the blouse he'd once said made my eyes look like I kept secrets. He sat at a corner table with Jess, Maya, Alicia, and a guy I didn't recognize. Glasses were already sweating with their second pour. Laughter hung in the air like steam. "Sorry I'm late," I said, sliding a hand to the back of his chair. Traffic held me hostage. For a heartbeat, Ethan looked through me as if searching for my name in a crowd. His expression reset into a practiced smirk. Jess said, "Oh, she actually came." I smiled like it cost nothing. Was that in doubt? Ethan took a long sip, set his glass down with ceremony, and said, calm, loud enough for the table, like we were actors reading cold lines. "Rowan, be real. You really thought someone like me would ever seriously date someone like you?" Silence. Then the kind of giggles people do when they're trying to choose sides without getting splashed. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. The new guy stared into his wine like it had answers. A waiter stalled mid-step and kept moving because cities teach you to ignore small disasters. My face burned. My spine did not. I inhaled and felt my ribs widen, making room for a choice. "Good," I said evenly. "Then this is the last time you'll have to see me." I set my glass, untasted, on the table. I did not make a speech. I did not break anything. I turned and walked out, my heels sure on concrete, my pulse loud and steady like a drum line leaving a stadium. The night air was cold enough to bite. I drove home in silence, the city neon blurring into a ribbon I refused to tie around this moment. On my couch, I watched the dark learn my name again. Numbness is its own anesthesia. It kept my hands from shaking. At 11:58 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, I'm Alicia, Ethan's friend from tonight. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve that. There's more you should know." I stared at the text like it was a trapdoor. The phrases "I'm sorry" and "there's more" do not belong in the same sentence unless you're about to confess or bleed. I almost blocked her. Almost. "Why are you texting me?" I typed. 3 dots. Then, "Because what he did was wrong, and because this wasn't about you. Can we talk tomorrow? Coffee? I'll meet wherever's easiest." My hands went still the way they do before I touched live power. The wine bar scene replayed. Ethan's voice auditioning for cruelty. The friend's thin laughter. My own body remembering how to exit. I thought about every tiny shift in the past 2 months. The sudden silences, the late cancellations, the way he'd flinched when I mentioned my mom asked about Thanksgiving plans. At 2:06 a.m. I replied, "5th and Main, noon. Don't be late." Her response pinged immediately. "I'll be there. Thank you." Sleep refused me. I reheated leftover dumplings at 3 a.m. and ate standing up, staring at a basil plant on the sill, leaning hard toward the last of the streetlight. People also lean toward what feeds them. I'd lean toward Ethan. He'd lean toward applause. Morning arrived wearing a bad disguise. I showered, braided my hair, chose a sweater that didn't beg for compliments. At 11:42, I took a corner table at the coffee shop, ordered a black coffee I did not intend to drink, and watched strangers perform normal life. A toddler negotiating a muffin, a couple choosing opposite scones and biting from both. At exactly 12 untrick, Alicia walked in. No makeup, ponytail, sweater sleeves pulled over nervous hands. Without the bar's lighting and noise, she looked like someone who had not slept. She ordered tea and sat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. "Talk," I said. I wanted facts, not sympathy. Alicia took a breath like bracing for cold water. "I should have said something last night. I didn't. I'm sorry. But you need to know this wasn't about you being less than. Ethan does this thing. When relationships get serious, he performs an exit, big, public, so he doesn't have to be the one afraid." "Performs," I repeated, the word tasting like rust. "He calls it ripping off the Band-Aid," she continued, shame in her eyes. "We used to laugh. I'm not laughing anymore." I said nothing. Silence is better cross-examination than any question. "He texted the group chat after you left," Alicia went on, "said he felt free, said he finally did what he should have done weeks ago." I let the words land and pass through me like a cold front. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked finally. "Because I've been enabling it," she said, "and because I saw your face when he said that to you. I don't want to be the kind of friend who applauds someone's worst impulse." There it was, a small, precise cut of truth. Alicia glanced down, then back up. "His ex-girlfriend warned us once," she added quietly. "Said he turns intimacy into spectacle when he's scared. We ignored her because it didn't fit the story we wanted. I left the group chat this morning." My coffee had gone cold. I still didn't touch it. I looked at Alicia, the only person from that table who had found a spine overnight, and felt something unclench. "Thank you," I said, "for not letting him own the narrative." "It doesn't fix what happened," she said, "but it's a start." When we stood, she gave me her number. "If you ever need to talk, or if you want me to show you the receipts," she said, grimacing at her own word choice, "I won't unless you ask." I slid the slip of paper into my wallet. "I'll let you know." I walked out into daylight that felt a shade cleaner. On the way home, I called the only person who can hold a broken thing without asking me to prove it's sharp, my older sister, Elin. When she answered, I didn't try to sound fine. "What happened?" she asked. "I think I met the worst version of someone I loved," I said, "and I met the best version of one of his friends." "Okay," Elin said, voice steady as an anchor. "Then today we honor both truths, and we start with you eating lunch." I laughed for the first time in 24 hours. It sounded strange, like a room being aired out. I made a sandwich, watered the basil, and wrote a single line in my notes app. Some people audition their cruelty. The callback is whether you stay. I set my phone down and, for once, didn't pick it back up. Alicia and I stayed in that drafty cafe long enough for the barista to flip the pastry labels from morning to afternoon. The first 20 minutes had been triage. The next 40 were testimony. "Ethan doesn't end relationships," she said, fingers around her tea as if heat could keep her honest. "He detonates them. It's how he avoids being left. It's theater." She winced at the word. I watched a couple outside split a croissant, hand to hand, easy and unperformed. "Who taught him that audience equals safety?" I asked. "His mother, maybe? Jess says they never learned to fight quiet in that house." Alicia's mouth twisted. "A few months ago, his ex-girlfriend Tessa DM'd me after a party. She said, 'If he starts making jokes with an audience, leave. He's already writing the breakup.' I thought she was bitter. I didn't realize she was warning me." "And after I left last night?" I asked, already guessing. Alicia winced harder. "He told the chat he felt free, that he'd finally been honest. Jess sent heart emojis. Maya changed the subject to tickets for some rooftop thing. The unspoken rule has always been, laugh, distract, never confront. I left the group right after I read it." She shook her head. "I've been calling it loyalty, but it's really been cowardice." I let the words settle between us. "It matters that you saw it," I said quietly, "and that you said it out loud." "Doesn't fix what he did to you," she said. "No," I agreed, "but it prevents me from asking questions that have the same answer every time." We traded small histories and self-defense. She talked about shrinking herself to keep a friend group's peace. I admitted I've spent years choosing people whose chaos I could solve with competence. It feels heroic until it feels like erasure. When we stood to leave, Alicia pulled in a breath. "I'm starting therapy this week," she said. "I figured if I'm going to stop co-signing other people's harm, I should look at my own." "Text me your therapist's name if she's good," I said. I like efficient referrals. Her laughter surprised both of us. Outside, January light made everything look overexposed. The street, the truth, my own face in the cafe window as if meeting me for the first time. I didn't go home right away. I walked 2 extra blocks and called my sister Elin again. I told her about the group chat, the ex's warning, the part of me that hated that I hadn't seen the trapdoor beneath the table sooner. Elin listened, like a person at a dimmer switch, turning judgment down, presence up. You didn't miss it, she said. You believe the version of him he auditioned for you. That's not a failure. That's a compliment he didn't earn. I sat on a low wall outside a florist, air smelling like green things pretending it wasn't winter. I want to scream, I admitted, and I want to sleep for a week. Pick rest, she said. Screaming never convinced a single ghost to leave. I went home and did the very boring, very holy things. Laundry, dishes, a list titled Body Story. With boxes I could actually check. Water, food, walk, sleep. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and fell asleep on the couch with the basil plant leaning toward me like agreement. The next morning I messaged my boss. Taking the day. Personal. We'll be back tomorrow. She replied in 9 minutes. Got you. Doors open if you want to talk. The relief of not having to perform productivity felt like heat returning to cold fingers. On Tuesday, I went back to work. The server room hummed at its usual pitch. I told Karen, my boss, the G-rated version. Breakup, public, not my best night. She didn't ask for gore. She said, then you being here is you doing more than enough. It's strange how grief loves routine. I started getting up before my alarm again. I returned to the gym I abandoned whenever I love someone inefficiently. I prepped food that wasn't delivered in styrofoam. I put Ethan's hoodie in a donation bag without narrating it. On Wednesday, Alicia texted, therapy intake done. Felt like ripping out carpet I've been tripping on. How are you? Functioning, I wrote. Eating on purpose. And I haven't cyber-stalked him once. Gold star, she sent back. I'm proud of you. It was a weird thing for a near stranger to say. It mattered anyway. Thursday evening, Elin called, after putting her kids to bed. Say it, she said without preamble. Say what? Say the sentence you don't want to touch because it will make it real. I stared at my ceiling like it might deliver the line for me. Then, he humiliated me on purpose so he could feel brave. Silence on her end, not empty, spacious. There it is, she said. Now try this one. I walked away with dignity, and I'm not going back for my pride. I already have it. I said it out loud. It fit. The week rebuilt itself plank by plank. On Friday, Karen slid a project my way that came with more autonomy and a quiet raise. You've been doing senior work, she said. Might as well pay you like it. I signed the paper, half dizzy that gain could exist alongside loss without canceling each other out. 2 weeks after the wine bar, I went to the grocery store on a Sunday that had finally remembered sunlight. I compared pasta brands I knew tasted identical and let the choice take the time it wanted. Behind me, a voice said my name like a question. Rowan? I turned. Ethan stood there with a basket. Bread, coffee, theater. He looked smaller without a chorus. My first instinct was exit. My second was a monologue sharp enough to draw blood. What I did was choose a third thing, boundary. You have 1 minute, I said, moving us to the end cap, neutral territory between olive oil and olives. I'm sorry, he said immediately. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. I'm in therapy. My therapist says I panic when things get permanent. My parents' divorce messed me up. He stopped, searching my face for a softness I didn't owe him. It wasn't about you, he added quickly. It was about me being afraid. It happened to me, I said. Calm as a muscle. Mine didn't shake. That's enough about me for a lifetime. He flinched. I felt cornered. You were loved. That's different. He swallowed. Are you seeing someone? That's not your question to ask anymore. He nodded, chastened. Right. I want you to know you were good to me. You didn't deserve what I did. I know, I said, and felt the truth land like a key in the correct lock. I hope therapy helps. Don't perform the apology. Do the work. His eyes glossed. For a second, I could see the boy version of him, unarmored. Then it was over. He lifted his basket. Goodbye, Rowan. Goodbye, Ethan. I put spaghetti in my cart and kept moving. In the parking lot, I called Elin. He apologized, I said. How do you feel? Not shattered, I said, surprised. Just finished. Then that's what you are, she said. Finished. Not with love, with that chapter. That night, I wrote another line in my notes app. Closure is not a conversation. It's the moment you don't need one. I slept 8 hours without my body trying to draft rebuttals in the dark. On Monday, Alicia texted a link to a hiking group. I'm doing this next month. Want to come? Low drama, high oxygen. I stared at the photos. Trees, sky, a group around a fire where no one looked like they were auditioning. The old me would have said no out of reflex. Maybe, I typed, send details. Look at us, Alicia replied. Choosing different. Choosing better, I corrected. Even better, she wrote back, and added a mountain emoji I didn't know I needed. It was Alicia's idea, as most unexpected detours in my life now seemed to be. Come on, Rowan, she'd said on the phone. It's just a weekend hike. You don't even have to talk to anyone if you don't want to, but you should see people who aren't still orbiting that mess. A mess. That's what she called it, and for once the word didn't sting. It just fit, like describing a storm after you've already rebuilt the roof. So I said yes. The hike. The mountain wasn't particularly famous or tall, just 2 hours out of the city, with a lake that mirrored the sky like it wanted to borrow its peace. 12 of us showed up, some couples, some singles, all with different stories hidden under backpacks and sunscreen. Alicia waved when I arrived. I saved you a tent spot, she said, near the quieter side, away from the guitar people. That's how I met Daniel, who was busy failing to set up his tent next to ours. He was a graphic designer, recently relocated, and as Alicia whispered later, a little too honest for his own good. He looked up, smiled sheepishly, and said, I swear I'm not usually this bad at geometry. Gravity disagrees, I replied. He laughed, genuine and self-deprecating, and something small in me, something I hadn't realized was locked, shifted open by a fraction. That night, by the bonfire, everyone traded stories the way strangers do when the dark makes confession easy. Someone talked about quitting a job after 20 years. Someone else about losing a friend group that used to feel like family. When it was my turn, I didn't name names. I said, I once dated a man who thought cruelty was honesty. He made sure I learned it in front of witnesses. I left. That's my whole story. No one gasped or pitied. They just nodded, as if everyone had their own version of a public ending. Later, Daniel handed me a marshmallow on a stick. For the record, he said, that's not honesty. That's performance art. Bad art. Yeah, I said, and I stopped buying tickets. He smiled, the kind that doesn't ask for anything in return. Good. The new beginning. The next morning, we hiked through fog that moved like breath. My shoes squelched. My heart didn't. Daniel and I talked the way people do when they've both been broken carefully enough to respect quiet. He told me about his ex-girlfriend, how they'd tried to save each other from loneliness and ended up creating more of it. I told him I'd once mistaken attention for affection and applause for love. He said, it's weird, isn't it? How you can miss people who only existed in the version of the story they wrote for you. That line stayed with me long after the hike ended. The real story. Back in the city, Alicia and I met for coffee a week later. She looked lighter. Therapy's wild, she said. You realize how many bad habits come disguised as loyalty. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. There's something you should see, only if you want to. On her screen was a post from Tessa, Ethan's ex-girlfriend. It was a public journal entry. Long. Honest. She wrote about a man who rehearses his exits like monologues, who needs humiliation to feel power, and who called it bravery every time he burned someone's trust. Same words, same pattern, same man. I exhaled. Not surprise. Confirmation. I thought it was just me, I said quietly. It was never just you, Alicia said. He keeps finding people who think compassion can rewrite someone's code. It can't. For a second, I pictured him again, sitting at that wine bar, laughter swelling around his cruelty like applause around a punchline, and I thought, he doesn't even realize the show's over. The choice. It's been months since that hike. Daniel and I still talk. Nothing rushed, nothing labeled. Sometimes it's just memes and weather complaints. Sometimes it's real talk about fear, therapy, and the quiet work of trusting again. Alicia's thriving. She left her old friend group entirely. My therapist says my silence used to mean shame, she told me last week. Now it means peace. As for Ethan, I saw him once more. It was at a local cafe, the same one where Alicia and I first met. He was with someone new, tall, polished, laughing too loudly. He didn't see me at first, but when he did, our eyes met. For a moment, recognition flickered, then guilt, then nothing. He smiled, that same rehearsed curve I used to mistake for charm. I nodded once. That was all. He turned back to his companion, the scene already repeating itself. The final lesson. That night, I stood on my balcony, the city glittering like it was trying to apologize for its noise. I wrote one last note to myself. Humiliation taught me boundaries. Betrayal taught me discernment. And walking away taught me peace. The version of me that stood frozen in that wine bar, she thought silence was weakness. Now she knows. It's strategy. Some people weaponize words. Others build exits. I learned how to build mine quietly, brick by brick. And in that stillness, something rare finally bloomed. Freedom.